Hello friends and welcome to 2% the podcast, where we discuss the fundamental strategies used by today's leading D2C brands to learn how they grow their business by 2% every day. This show is brought to you by Caro, the #1 collaborative commerce platform for D2C's best brands. Today I am joined by Joseph Siegel, Director of Retention and Growth at Feastables. Feastables is a better for you snack brand founded by the legendary YouTuber Mr. Beast. In this episode, we're talking all about email marketing. And I asked Joseph some fundamental questions like, how can we improve email click-through rates on our email campaigns? How can we improve the post-click journey to improve conversion? We talk all about creating engaging emails with AMP, and actually the email campaign that they sent that drove over 2 million clicks. We ask what email marketers should and shouldn't be testing, and then we talk more holistically about retention and how to actually extrapolate learnings and lessons from the retention channel to improve our e-commerce strategy. This episode is incredibly tactical, and I am so pumped to be able to present this one to you. And so with that, I present to you Joseph Siegel of Feastables. Joseph Siegel, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm good. I got pulled over this morning, so day could have started better, but hey, I got out of the ticket, and we're here and we made it.
Tell us your secrets. Was it to send an email campaign, or what was the excuse you gave the officer?
I played the innocent card and, told him I was preparing for an important podcast this morning, and, my mind was running and I missed the stop sign, never saw it. I think that's what worked.
I love it. 2% podcast, saving people from tickets, as something I'm going to put on our website as well. Exactly. But anyway, man, I am stoked for this conversation. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you today. And I'm excited for this conversation for a lot of reasons, but I think what started this, obviously we've known each other, for a while, not back to your days at Fluency Firm, but I saw you tweeted recently, and I'll read the tweet for full here for folks to get summarized on, but you said, last week we sent an email to 200,000 subs that had 2 million, that's right, 2 million total clicks. That's over 10 clicks on average per recipient. Hint, the strategy has never been done before. Man, that's a fire tweet if I've ever seen one before, and to say I was floored is an understatement on that click-through rate. So I knew immediately I had to get you on the pod, have you unpack how you're driving so many clicks on emails, and we're also going to talk about all the benefits of kind of what you're really doing here with some of this stuff on email, and also just retention in general. So today we're getting 2% better as retention marketers and diving deep into Feastables' retention marketing program. So Joseph, I just said all that stuff, man, but why don't you introduce yourself? Who's Joseph Siegel and who is Feastables?
Yeah, so I'm a retention marketer by trade. Kind of just taught myself how to do email marketing at a time where email wasn't really that cool of a subject. Was kind of just thrown into the fire early on in my career, and basically was told if I don't figure it out, I'm going to get fired. And that's kind of sort of been my motto, or something I've lived by my whole life. It's just figure it out. And so, thankfully, there were a couple courses, meaning like Ezra Firestones and Chase Diamonds. So took those. Mm-hmm. Also, just I think you learn the most by doing, and so had a lot of failures early in my days, and ultimately led me to pursue the agency route early in my career. Was a part of a couple of agencies, and where I was at most recently was a company called Fluency Firm. I was the first to join there as the head of lifecycle and retention, and got a chance to work with some really cool companies like Pharrell's company, Human Race. A cool kombucha company called Better Booch, Michelle Pfeiffer's company, Henry Rose. So essentially led all of our lifecycle and retention strategy there from A to Z. And that kind of led me over here to Feastables, and, working with the biggest creator now in the world. And things definitely get bigger and more complicated the more you kind of move up the scale. And it's something I've always looked for, just the next challenge. So yeah.
I love that, man. Dude, and great shout outs to Ezra and to Chase as well. I learned email marketing from all the Blue Ribbon courses that Ezra had put out. Just such a treasure trove of information there. Makes me super nostalgic for the days when I was an email marketer and just doing all that stuff. I remember diving into those courses and just being so enthralled with how he was building Boom, how he was building, some of these other side businesses. But also too, man, I love, just kind of like that you're taking on this challenge at Feastables and this opportunity, I should say, to go from the agency to the brand side. I know a lot of people on, the agency side who make that switch say it's one of the best things they could have ever done for their career. So I'm pumped for you, man. I'm really excited to learn more about what you've been doing here the last couple of months. So walk us through, man. So I just kind of talked at the top of this, episode here about this campaign that, had driven, 2 million clicks. So dude, talk us through, just like, let's start from the beginning. Like, if you could just give us like the backstory, how you built it, what some of the results and feedback that you saw, like what you learned, like all that good stuff, so you can just kind of riff on that for a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So we try to beastify, it's sort of a word that we created here, just like try to beastify everything we do. And the emails for the most part were pretty one-dimensional, and I don't want to call them stale, but we need to do something different. And so we started playing into sort of like mini games and email experiences that, to our understanding, have like never really been done before. And so I think the first big hit out of all of these was this game that we created called, the first 5 people to click this email 500 times would win a 50% off discount code. This idea actually came from Twitter. I was actually scrolling through Twitter, and I think we can shout him out in the notes here. I think his name is Gil. And he made a really cool video of actually doing some sort of checkout promotion for Feastables or Mr. Beast, where if you click some button in checkout, you could get some ridiculous discount code off of your order. So we essentially turned that into an email and said, we have a ton of people on our email list. To be honest, we didn't even send it to nearly half of our email subscribers. We just kind of wanted to test it out and essentially make a proof of concept here. And we sent it out, 200 subs, and pretty immediately started getting just a ridiculous number of clicks. And I can actually backtrack here and explain how we built it. We leverage a platform called Spellbound. They use AMP technology within emails, essentially allowing you to, have interactive elements in your email. And so their actual product offering is not custom emails whatsoever. It's actually mostly used for like abandoned carts, abandoned checkouts, or if you're doing some sort of sales campaign and you want someone to instantly add the product that you're pushing into their cart, you can actually do that straight from the email with Spellbound. And so we looked at what they had and kind of challenged them and said, there might be something more here. We can actually probably build out some custom emails that, would allow us to actually, have people come to our email, not just for shopping, but also for the experience. Totally. And so, we worked with their team pretty closely. It took, I would say a couple of weeks actually to set this campaign up. And like I said, just got a ridiculous number of clicks just off the bat. And we kind of huddled up a week later and went over the data. And so we had, I think, like 4,000 or 5,000 people click the email 500 times, which if you add it up, it's going to be 2.5 plus million clicks. And so, we got the 5 people who won the 50% off code. The funny thing is all 5 of them didn't even use the code. They just kind of like wanted to win. So, somewhat of learning there, like maybe we don't need to incentivize this like ridiculous offer, and or maybe we need to go higher. I don't really know, but sure. We'll probably just continue testing that.
Yeah, I love that. It's really gamifying the email experience. It's doing something that, it goes back to, I think, the ethos of like Feastables and, and like Mr. Beast and kind of some of those themes, I think, and what I'm kind of seeing as a user of kind of like, being on the list myself. But also I love that you've really focused on like, just kind of like, obviously a click is great for, email deliverability. I'd love for maybe you to speak to a little bit about that as well, as like, what is the benefit for Feastables besides obviously, getting folks to site, getting them engaged? Is there any deliverability benefit, I'd imagine, then from getting that many clicks? And did Klaviyo maybe send you an email saying, hey, how did you get, this many clicks? Is this a bug? Like, I'm just curious, like, about the click side of that and what that kind of benefit would be for the email program itself.
So yeah, the deliverability impact was pretty significant here. Actually, with in using AMP technology with Spellbound, Klaviyo at this point in time is not actually able to share all the data as far as so what Klaviyo will tell you is how many people have made the end goal number of clicks. So if we're setting up a campaign to have 7 clicks total and the final click sends you to a website, which obviously they should, the final click should always do that. That's actually the only click that Klaviyo will record. So
Got it. Okay.
we have to kind of rely on Spellbound and their data and their platform to kind of show us all the clicks in between. But nonetheless, when people are clicking that many times, you're going to get a lot of people clicking through. And first of all, like our engaged segment probably jumped, or I would say like almost doubled after that campaign. Beyond that, every campaign, I would say like the next 3 to 5 campaigns after sending that campaign or the interactive email, all saw significant just jumps in engagement and opens and clicks. And, I think at the end of the day, people just are, I don't know if they're expecting it at this point, but they definitely want to see if there's a chance that there's some sort of game in our email now, which is kind of our goal here. Like we want to keep people on their toes. We don't want people to know, exactly, you're opening it, you're not going to mislead them, but it's sort of like dangling a carrot here. And yeah, I mean, as far as that, it's even like our campaigns now that are completely static, regular, boring campaigns get, 5% plus click rate sending to a massive list and, 40% plus open rates. So, yeah, it's been huge.
Totally. And I'm curious, like, it's sort of like it's conditioning folks the behavior of clicking, engaging with the emails, keeping them on your toes, like you said. Does every email that you send have that AMP technology now in it? Are you just doing a couple and then you have more static emails for the rest? Like, what's the mix sort of look like for Feastables?
So we're trying to build some sort of habit around these games. If you like these sort of like email games that we're creating, we're trying to create some sort of expectation or cadence, and by that I mean maybe it's every other Friday every month. Mm-hmm. So 2 or so. We're trying to aim for at least two-ish a month, just because they take a lot of time to build. Ideally, I'd like to do one every week, but they're just at the end of the day just completely fully custom emails.
That's awesome, man. I think and yeah, these definitely seem just from the viewer's perspective, there's a lot of intention that looks like from the design, for bringing it all together. I think the fact that you guys can even get 2 a month, that's amazing to see. And I think it also, it keeps people just coming back to the email channel and having those experiences. Like I would look forward to that as a customer, as a subscriber, just of that email channel in general. I'm curious. So like we talked about, getting clicks through some of this stuff here with AMP, keeping people engaged. Do you think that the goal of every email should be to drive a click, or are there still emails that, a DTC brand would send that, just should be informational and they don't need to have that click kind of associated with it?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it sort of as like an average. So I would say every email shouldn't necessarily have to get, a 1+, or, I know everyone talks about, oh, if this email doesn't do well, then, that was a failure of an email. For us, it's an aggregate. So, for example, we just sent out a campaign that, we launched in Target. I don't expect that to get a ton of engagement just because we're pushing people to Target. It's an online digital email. The goal for that campaign is simply just let people know, just spread the awareness. If they see the subject line, great. If they click into the email, then that they can actually learn more about the fact that they could actually go to Target, buy Feastables, and post a picture on Instagram and get featured on Instagram, on our story. And I think that's something a ton of people want to do. And sure. That campaign actually just went out yesterday. So hopefully we see some more stories come out today. But see, for that, like I don't care. I don't care about the click because I know we'll make up for it elsewhere.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's a good point. There's a lot of goals and benefits, and not every email needs to. I agree. I think every email needs to drive that click to be a success, and kind of having, if you're sending folks to Target, you have a goal in mind for getting on Instagram, whatever that goal is for the company. Email can just be a great tool to deliver that. But on the flip side of that too, like I remember as an email marketer, taking those Ezra Firestone courses back in the day, starting with some brands like, you obviously want to increase click-through rate for a lot of reasons, and you're testing things, and you're putting buttons at the top and below, and testing emails and all the different things and imagery and all that stuff, subject lines, whatever, to even get people interested. But I'm curious, like from your perspective, as a retention expert, what do you think are some common mistakes or things that you see in emails that don't drive a click? Like what are some landmines that folks listening can maybe avoid to just kind of improve click-through rates on their emails?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's so much clutter in the inbox these days, and it really does take a good email to get at least me to click. So I'd imagine that's probably the same for the majority of people out there, and kind of just comes down to understanding your customer. If your customers are crazy people who, for us, I'm just speaking by experience, like they want the nuttiest thing possible, or something that's going to get them to think and do. And so, for example, we're asking people to, choose, what side they're on as far as like, are they a milk chocolate lover or a dark chocolate lover? And for, they could, for all I know, probably think that was an interactive email, but they click the button and it goes to a website, sends them to a chocolate page, and they ended up buying. But I would say it comes down to, probably not understanding your customers enough. Sending emails that, just for the sake of sending emails is not a good strategy. And I think brands probably do that and try to rinse and repeat the same kind of stuff. Obviously, you should have social proof, but like, a social proof email every other day is not really gonna, be something that I would want to click. And same with even like promoting your products. You got to get creative and scrappy about how to, angle your products there. And I think that's something that I've seen a lot of brands do, is just kind of say, hey, this is back, which is great. That would drive people back. But I think people need to think of new creative angles and ways to promote their products, or even just like educate people about their brand. And by doing that, they actually are involved with us. Like, a click will lead to the next thing, and then kind of go down that rabbit hole from there.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great point, man. Starting with understanding your customer. I think a lot of people who are getting started with even doubling down on email, or they're like, how can we improve it? They always look at others or what's best practice for inspiration. But like at the end of the day, if you don't understand your customer and what makes them click, or even just your email list and like what their interests are, and even thinking about that from the lens of like, would I engage with this? It's like, that's marketing 101, but it's there's some things there that even I think like are often overlooked with that. I love that you're, thinking ways outside the box. It's not just hey, send social proof. Now it's, new products released, whatever. So it's like kind of ways to keep the email channel fun. And then when you sort of like deposit those things in the piggy bank, when you have something that you really need to get out, you drive sales, drive, traffic, whatever that is, like people are like, heck yeah, I'll click on that email. Like I love, being on this email channel, whatever that is. What do you think about, so we talked about the click and how important that is, but like the post-click journey, like where they go next. As a retention marketer, how much are you thinking about that? And like, talk me through some of that stuff.
Totally matters, 100%. And actually, when I was on the agency side, that was a common occurrence where, we're out here doing our job, driving the clicks, and ultimately the click is just a click. It's moving you to the next stage of the buying journey. Your home page or your PDP page or your landing page, wherever you're sending people, if it's not set up for success, your email you'll never do well. I guess like at the end of the day, like it'll be very, very hard for you as an email marketer to drive consistent, high growth revenue if like your website is just not set up for success. And so thankfully here, being internal at Feastables, we're able to actually, assess like the buying journey, look at the PDP, see how to optimize it. And by the way, we still have a lot of work to do there. But then also looking into the add to cart experience. Are you doing any upsells there? Just looking at the friction points, and it definitely matters. Without that, your clicks is your click is meaningless.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's oftentimes it's like, hey, like if we can just get the click, that's it. But like that journey post click is arguably even more important. It's like when someone gets there, like what do they do? Like, is it logical? Like what you're asking them to do? It even goes back to like if they click, and they're being misled to something and they end up on like, they're some random page that they don't even know why they're there, and they bounce, and then there's like, you look at GA and you look at the bounce rates and all this stuff. There's just so many things, but I think you're right. It's like, it's all for naught if you don't have that great post-click experience. So like I see a lot of content just around like open rates and clicks, but like not enough about like what I feel like is the most important, which is like taking action and actually then driving a conversion or driving a blog post read or whatever that is. I think that that's like the kind of like magic sauce of everything kind of coming together there.
I totally agree. And kind of going back into this interactive email concept here, I think a huge selling point to that is that if you add a product to your cart in the email, the button from the email actually sends you to checkout. So you're kind of skipping that whole part of the journey altogether, which hopefully should, lead to higher conversions. And we're still testing that out, but that's kind of the whole premise there.
Totally. Yeah. And on the notion of testing, what else are you testing in email right now? I know that's kind of a jumping off point and probably to multiple conversations, but is there like any one or two things that you're testing that you're just super fascinated by or curious to see what yields some results from?
Yeah. I mean, we're testing the pretty standard stuff, mostly within, our automated flows. And, we're kind of past those days of like testing time delays and adding an email here, an email there. At this point, it's a lot of, testing static versus dynamic or interactive emails. It's also testing, win back campaigns and what kind of offer works best there. For us, it's kind of like a constant battle there because a lot of our customers come in through some sort of, bigger than life promotion. Obviously, for a chance to meet Mr. Beast or a chance to win a Tesla, you're going to get a lot of people just buying, Feastables just for that opportunity and not necessarily for the chocolate. Sure. So for us, that's I would say that's the bulk of our testing ground is just figuring out what gets people to come back and click and be true brand loyalists beyond just being a Mr. Beast fan.
Sure. Yeah, it's staying engaged in the ecosystem. What makes them, want to continue to engage with the brand. Thinking about too where they came in to the funnel or where under the email list too. That's a really interesting one. I love that you called that out. There's a lot of like, you look at like best practices for like email testing, for example, and everyone's just like, yeah, test timing, test add a third email to your abandoned cart, like that'll make them buy stuff like that. I'm curious, like, do you think that stuff actually moves the needle for email programs in general, or is it more important to test some of the things that you just talked about there?
Well, I mean, I would say it's never too. There's no reason not to test everything. I mean, you like look and I've seen it firsthand. If you have a 30-minute delay versus even an hour, like that could actually make some sort of incremental difference where it might be worth it to leave that test running. Now, is it probably the most important test of everything? No. But at the end of the day, if you're someone who's going into a new brand or auditing a brand, or you're responsible for, the email program there, I would say test everything and move from one test to the next. It's something that we don't overlook. I don't think anyone should overlook the little things. And kind of once you're past those, then you can move on to the bigger tests. Obviously, it's like what product should we upsell? You can test a bunch of different ones there. And at what point do we send them, the win back campaign obviously matters, but also like what channel is best, works best in terms of delivering that message. Is it email? Is it SMS? Is it direct mail? Is it, a push notification? That's more so kind of where I'm testing right now of like what channel works best for people to bring them back. We've had so far a lot of success with direct mail. We've seen that. We've done a couple incrementality or holdout group tests there, and we've just seen like very clear as day. People who do receive our direct mail campaigns purchase more than people who don't. So we're definitely looking to invest pretty heavily into that channel.
Love that. Yeah. Are you guys using Postpilot for that?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's like the gold standard for direct mail in the DTC space. Big shout out to those guys. But I agree, man. It's interesting to hear. Like I'm hearing a similar theme from people too. Like, and you look at like the cohort analysis of that and like what folks are spending. Yep. There's a lot of, I think, just stuff to dig in deeper on there. But I want to pull it back to. I love that you said looking at some of these things around where folks engage with on a channel perspective. And like, also, I think one of the things that I've fallen victim to too as an email marketer in the past is like you test absolutely everything, but then there's like no follow up to like, cool, we learned all this stuff, or we think we did, but then how do we take that insight, make the program better, number one, but then number two, it's like, how do you then take that to the CX team, the paid media team, your creative team, like all that stuff, and then say, hey, like here's what we've learned, now let's go, actually make those improvements. So like, what does that feedback loop look like for you as you're learning these insights? Are you sharing that with the broader Feastables team? And what kind of stuff or conversations are you having around that?
Yeah, I mean, me as being like the retention leader here, and Jess being the CX leader, we're besties. We call each other just besties at this point. We're constantly just feeding back information about what she learns on the CX side. What are people responding to, or what are people saying in response to our emails? What are people saying in product reviews? What are people saying in online chat or on Reddit, on Twitter? People do that based off of our campaigns. Like they will make posts online about those. So it's been a great relationship for us. And, we try to, we essentially just have like a weekly report and kind of go through everything on a weekly basis. Some products work better than others in terms of like win backs. And then, as far as our supply chain team, we'll kind of give them a heads up. Hey, this product is working more here. We should probably stock up a little bit more on them. And vice versa, if products aren't moving, on the D2C side, then we'll, allow them to kind of push some of that inventory over to Amazon or over to retail. So we're kind of in constant feedback loops here.
Love that. Yeah. Big shout out to Jess as well. I'm glad that we got that in. I know she put on Twitter to make sure we mentioned that.
Welcome to Caro, where the world's top brands and creators come together to sell each other's products through cross-store selling. You can join Caro as an online retailer, product supplier, or both. As a retailer or creator, you can sell other amazing products on your online store, allowing you to quickly expand your catalog and increase your average order value, all without the upfront costs of investment in new inventory. You simply sell more product and collect a profit. As a supplier, Caro opens up an entirely new sales channel, making your products available to be sold on thousands of other top brands and top creators' stores. Orders are sent right to their Shopify order queue, making fulfillment super easy. You're always in control as a supplier, choosing what products to make available to the network, what retailers you work with, and the margin that works best for your business. It's the biggest no-brainer in the history of e-commerce. There are literally thousands of brands and creators. Our team is ready to help you find a perfect pairing to your brand. What are you waiting for? Join Caro and start selling more together.
I love that you're looking at it holistically and understanding like what product is moving, what product isn't, what are we hearing, what's coming in, even on like stuff like chat, replying, all this different stuff that like CX sees that, more on the logistics side, all these different things come together, but like retention really is a hub for a lot of those things. And like I even saw Gorgeous just like was talking today about like how, like every brand should be hiring a director of retention right now. If they don't, there's just so much good stuff, obviously, that comes from having someone there to be able to lead that effort. I had Jess on the Taika pod, my last podcast a while ago to talk about branding and emails, and I think like Feastables from like a branding perspective is just like chef's kiss, like awesome branding across email, the site, and all that. And we were talking about transactional emails and just like how intentional each design element was, all the different things. Like it just really showed me that you guys are thinking about goes back to our conversation around clicks and making things fun and engaging. I'm just curious, before we depart from email here, on the design aspect of things, like can you talk to me just a little bit about how you're approaching email design, like from idea inception all the way through like a finished product? What does that sort of look like, and who's involved kind of in that process for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm blessed to have honestly the best team the best team possible around me, and we've hired just some of the best designers in the space. firsthand, I've never worked with anyone who is as talented as the people we have on our team. And so, we essentially have an email design lead here, and she and I just kind of work back and forth pretty much daily at this point. I'm obviously reporting to her on, what's getting clicks in emails, what's not. We kind of try to work around that, but our brand is very simple. It may come across as like a very over the top, kind of in your face with color kind of brand, but at the end of the day, we try to keep things pretty simplified here. And by that, I mean just like a very simple logo, a hero section. And before I came in, our email design was kind of just everywhere. It was just kind of like, there's words here, like massive words and like a big bold color. And then, the email would run on and on and on. And personally, I hate scrolling through emails that, require like multiple scrolls. And we were kind of just seeing that, like people weren't clicking at the bottom of the emails. And if there was anything important there, people would be missing it. So we've kind of taken that feedback and just kind of like worked around that and optimized around building just clear, concise emails that kind of get straight to the point. We actually did do a funny email at one point around our D's Nuts campaign launch. And I think it was just kind of going off of a meme, and it was basically a super long chocolate bar. And so this email actually was a super long email. You'd have to scroll down, and the whole email was a chocolate bar. But it had some like funny meme words in it where it's like, hey, have you heard of D's or something? It was like, hey, have you heard of D's? And then it's like, D's who? And then at the bottom of the email, it's like Jimmy saying D's nuts. So, right. We definitely try to experiment, but for the most part, we keep it simple.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, dude, it's having fun with it. I think it's also staying on brand, thinking about what your customers would find, enjoyable. And I'm curious too, like, are you guys like using drag and drop for that? Is there like HTML involved, or like, without giving away the trade secrets, I'm just curious, like how you even think about some of that design stuff there too.
Yeah. So we mock everything up. Well, it all really starts with a copy doc from me. So I'll kind of lay out the structure of the email along with the copy in just a plain Google Doc. We'll then send that over to the design team, and they'll kind of take this doc of just copy essentially and kind of put it into Figma. And then in Figma, that's kind of like the first draft. I'll kind of go in there and add my own notes, and we'll kind of work back and forth until we kind of find a finished product. And at that point, it's just kind of exporting and me dragging, dropping, and plugging in. This probably isn't best practice, and I know a lot of people talk about, hey, you shouldn't do only, design only emails. Like we don't really do much plain text, if at all, honestly. But that's kind of just how we operate, and it's kind of just worked for us.
Totally. I mean, hey man, there is no, in my opinion, there's no best practices. What works for one, if it works, keep doubling down on it. But I think also I just love that you guys have that process from like, I think it shows, like how, even, brands that everyone looks up to and aspires to be, even how they kind of think about that design process. And I think to your point too, like having a great designer for your emails can like really, really change the game for a lot of reasons. Like I remember my first foray in email marketing, I was doing the designs and like a mix of like Canva and like Figma, and like I was like, man, I'm not cut out for this. So hats off to the designers. They are the real MVP, I think, of email marketing.
Totally. I was in the same boat. I was designing everything, and that is like the worst idea ever because I have terrible design skills. And thankfully, I went through that, so I know how these designers feel. And it's a lot of work. A lot of work comes into it, and a lot of creativity is needed. And that's why just kind of reiterating, it's definitely worth it to invest in good designers.
1,000%, man.
Yeah.
Dude, it's one of the best investments any DTC brand can make, in my humble opinion.
Totally.
Well, we're going to depart from email and get a little more meta, I think, as we wrap up here on retention marketing and just kind of talking about some of your thoughts and insights there. Ash Milani, CMO of Obvi, had an amazing tweet the other day that I saw that you had retweeted, and I'll read it out. It said, "The difference between a world-class marketer and a mediocre marketer is their ability to think outside the box. Mediocre marketers follow the herd, and their templates, formulas, cookie cutter strategy, and world-class marketers create templates and formulas that everybody follows." So following versus actually setting the trend, it seems like. What do you think about something like that? I know there's a lot to unpack there, but how do you kind of think about that, man?
Yeah, it hit home for me when I saw that because, early on in your career, it's kind of hard to be an innovator. You're kind of just trying to learn everything you can and follow those people like Chase Diamond and Ezra Firestone and whoever else you see on Twitter because you don't know any better. And then, and that's kind of like what we were doing. And I don't want to say like every agency is like this, but on the agency side, it feels like, you're seeing what's working for one brand, you're applying it to another brand. It's hard to say that there's a lot of, I guess, like innovative thought involved. It's more just kind of like, going off of a playbook. And honestly, that works for a lot of brands. There's kind of no reason to stray away from a playbook that's working. But, the fact of the reality is for us at Feastables is you kind of can't follow a playbook here because, there's no other chocolate brands in the space that are influencer driven. Of course, there's other successful chocolate brands and they're doing what works for them. But for us, we have access to the biggest influencer in the world. And everything we do comes across to the consumer as if it's from Jimmy, straight from Jimmy. Mm-hmm. So, at the end of the day, if we're doing something that's boring or that every other brand is doing, I mean, Jimmy's, it's essentially like hurting his reputation. Like he's not known for being a follower. If you look at his YouTube channel, everything he does from top to bottom is brand new, and so for us, everyone on the team is challenged to come up with things that we've never thought of before or like never had to think of. And like I said, including myself. And so we try to take, the email experience in particular to a whole new level. That also ties down to SMS. Our SMS channel, obviously Jess has probably talked about it before, but you could chat with our SMS bot for hours. I mean, we have games in there, we have trivia, things that just want to keep people hooked. And I'm not seeing too many other brands, if any. Honestly, I've never seen any other brand do that. And that even goes down to the campaigns that we send on the SMS side. Like we tested out an emoji game where we asked people to decode 3 emoji phrases in a row. The first 10 people to do that would get every single snack we have in our store. So, that typically, you could try to do that, I guess, within, the compounds of like attentive and postscripts, flow builders and like based off of like keyword responses. But for us, we built that fully custom in a bot. So, if you didn't respond the right way, we would actually tell you, hey, you didn't, this is wrong. You have 8 tries left. And then going all the way down to 0. So it was a true game, and we ended up kind of breaking like PostScript or something, and we reached our API send limit. But if we're not doing stuff like that, then we're not really doing our jobs. So it just really hit home.
I love all of that you mentioned there, because it really tells me that you guys are thinking outside the box. Like there is, like, you're not just looking at the best practices manual from an attentive or a PostScript. Like you're taking that kind of like base, but then really thinking about how can we get folks engaged, how can we get them excited, how can we stay on brand. And it goes back to even like, you mentioned, having to maintain, Jimmy as this influencer of the brand, having to radiate that voice throughout, and thinking of clever ways to do that where it feels like authentic. It doesn't feel like you're just gaming a click, or you're trying to, bait them to do something. It's like fully just, it's really trendsetting. I even from my first conversation with Jess, talking about the transactional channel and the CX channel and some of that stuff, and hearing this today, I'm like, it's apparent to me that you guys are really, I think, far ahead of the curve, but also to setting that trend, which is really exciting, I think, for folks to kind of like just see how, you can apply this to your own brand. And obviously it's not going to be a one-to-one kind of, rip and replace, but like there's things to think about that, like, this is 2023, retention channels are growing. The ability for, us to build custom things is easier than ever, but it's just like, you need to be creative at the end of the day. And I love how you guys have kind of thought about all that, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, and you know, you don't need to have Mr. Beast as the backbone of your company to do a lot of this, right? It's just, again, you know, it's like comes down to knowing what your customers want and then building cool experiences around that.
Totally.
Even if you're a boring company that sells keyboards, I mean, that's probably a little too boring, but there's so many opportunities out there.
Oh, sure. Well, there's probably a DTC keyboard brand ripping 8-9 figures right now doing
Yeah.
doing boring stuff, you know. But I think it's right, man. This applies across, you know, anyone can figure this stuff out. I think it's just more along the lines of like being creative and thinking about what's, you said it to be kind of early in the conversation, thinking about what resonates with the customers. Marketing 101 stuff. I know I'm not saying anything brand new, but it's like, it's a theme that I think is just ever apparent. Last question before we go into some rapid fire and we'll wrap up here, but what's next for you and the Feastables team? Like any like one or two projects that are like super, you know, you're super pumped on, or like what kind of are you guys thinking about Q3 and Q4 here?
I can't really talk about a lot of it, but we're going to be making a big splash before the end of the year. It'll be more of a brand moment there. Again, can't share too much of that. I wish I could, but as far as what's next for me, I mean, I'm more so now focused on retention in other media channels, like retail media specifically, retention on Amazon, retention on our Target.com, our Target Roundel business, Walmart Connect. So really tapping into the retail media side of things, and just truly understanding like it's really a whole ecosystem. And you know, a customer who places an order in retail or a customer who places an order in D2C, they don't have to be exclusive. Like I don't need to gatekeep
Sure.
people, you know, pushing people to come back just to our online D2C business, because fact of reality is like people are going in stores all the time and it is kind of right in front of them at that point. But you know, again, everyone also shops on Amazon. So, you know, it's really making more of like an omni-channel, fully holistic growth strategy that we're really focused on right now.
Love that. Yeah, I think spot on. You know, I think like I'm hearing that across, you know, every brand that I speak with is like, you know, like this, there's soon to be a lot of content that like around like, you know, from like the tech side of like, oh, like we need to keep customers on only DTC channels, or like they have to like, how do you take step away from big box retail? And it's like, it's an ecosystem. I think you're focused, you know, on that too, and making sure just at the end of the day, if they're buying the products, if they're engaging with the brand, like those things have a cascading effect. And I think you're spot on in saying that, man. I'm excited. Well, I know we can't give away, you know, the trade secrets of what's in Q3 and Q4, but definitely for anyone listening, follow Feastables, go check it out. I think there's gonna be a lot of cool stuff. I'm sure that you guys will be dropping, you know, as the rest of the year progresses, man. So I'm excited for you guys. Before we wrap up here, I wanted to test a new segment with you. So I'm gonna put 2 minutes on the clock, and we're gonna try to go through as many rapid fire DTC questions as we can. Sound cool?
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, so I will press start. What brand partnership do you think would crush for Feastables if you had to work with another brand?
Feastables and Chamberlain coffee. Easy. We could make coffee chocolate that would taste just phenomenal.
Love it.
And then, yeah, colliding the two of the biggest YouTubers in the world would be awesome.
That would absolutely crush. I agree. What brand do you derive the most inspiration from?
It's going to sound kind of fucked up, but Feastables. We really don't look at many other brands. I mean, of course you want to keep tabs on people, but you know, for us, it's like we're kind of staying in our own lane.
That's a great response, man. No, I love it. Worst email or text campaign that you recently received, and we can let the brand remain anonymous.
Here's the sad thing. It actually came from a brand that I used to consult for. So
Ooh.
They basically have a winning they found a winning offer in terms of a win back campaign, and won't name them, but they basically send the exact word for word same text every 3 or 4 days, and it's like pushing a promotion that says ending soon, expiring soon, and at this point it's just like I'm done. And so unfortunately,
Sounds like law of diminishing returns for them, but I guess they haven't reached that point if it's if they're still
Right.
sending it.
yeah.
Cool. If you could say what's some bad advice that you've seen given often to other retention marketers or DTC brands in general?
Yeah, if you have some success, don't post your revenue screenshot on Twitter. It's kind of you know, like it doesn't do anything for anyone else. Like, I guess it gives you some sort of credibility, but you know, at the end of the day, like sales are not the entire picture. And yeah, just like, you know, share your wins with your internal team. And yeah.
Totally. No, I agree. A stat without context is absolutely meaningless. What's the best or most worthwhile investment you've ever made in your career?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's always been learning and growth and people, you know, just like finding the right people to surround yourself with, like Jess and, you know, other people I've met now in the space. And I think that's kind of just how you grow as a person, just surrounding yourself with the best people, feeding yourself the best sources of information. So it's kind of hard to narrow it down to one.
Totally. Yeah, no, I agree. I think surrounding yourself with the best people is really important, but everything you said there, I couldn't agree more as well. We went over on time, but that's okay. I thought those were all great responses. And after this, everyone send your screenshots of revenue to Joseph so we can have those on Twitter without any context about what they're actually saying.
Let's start it up. Let's do it.
Cool, man. Well, hey, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for sharing as much as you have about how you're driving engagement on email, all of the other good stuff that we talked about, you know, more holistically, and then even kind of some of the more meta stuff around retention. I think like we covered so much ground here, super tactical. So I appreciate it, man. You're welcome back on the show anytime. And I'm really, really rooting for you guys for Q3 and Q4 to pull through on some amazing campaigns. I know this probably is just the beginning, I think, for you guys of continuing to innovate on all the things you guys have been doing. So I appreciate it, man. And thank you so much for jumping on the show.
It's been a blast, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode. I hope you got 2% better for watching. And if you haven't already, consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel so you never miss another episode. We have a variety of e-com topics to talk about this season that's going to get you 2% better each week across a variety of topics. Also, if you want exclusive content not covered in these episodes that's super tactical, head over to getcaro.com/podcast. You'll find full episode recaps, transcripts, and so much more content that we don't have time to cover in these episodes. Lastly, if you want to continue on the journey right now, I encourage you to do so. I will link to a other episode right here. You can take advantage of that. Click just right there, and that'll take you to that episode. And with that, I'll see you next week on 2% the podcast.